You're listening to LeaderCast, episode 194. Welcome to LeaderCast, Transforming Missions podcast with Tim and Sara Thomas, providing you with insights and resources you need to lead a movement of Jesus followers. Each month throughout 2021, we're focusing on a different theme around courageous leadership. We've covered topics like purpose, relationships, and self-awareness, along with rest, relaxation, and play. You can find the whole list of themes at transformingmission.org/podcast 2021.
And today we want to introduce the theme for this month, Leadership is Service. Part of what we've recognized is that courageous leaders are people who do not use their position or title to assert power over other people. You know, courageous leaders recognize leadership is not about position or title. It's about seeing the potential in people and processes and having the courage to develop that potential. We want to thank Brene Brown for that definition. So here's the big question for today. What does it mean to be a leader who serves the people entrusted to your care? Sara, can you answer that for us?
Well, let's start with a story. And this story goes back 12 years. This is higher math happening here. Yeah, 12.
Well, it'd be close to that, yes.
Almost 12 years. And Tim and I were serving at the same church. And about a year before this event happened, literally, I woke up in the middle of the night with a vision for a ministry. And as crazy as it sounds, what I did was I got up and I went and I turned on my computer and I wrote down this vision. And it was a pretty lengthy document as I remember it. And there were a couple of people that I shared it with immediately, and they had positive responses to it, but didn't have any real ability to make this vision a reality. And the people that I had shared it with up until that point that did have the ability to offer something to make it a reality had all said things like, "That's too much work. There's no way that we can make that happen. It's going to cost too much money." You know, the usual things that we say in the life of the church when we don't want to do things, instead of just saying, "I don't want to do this." Tim had come on board as the lead pastor, and I had handed him a document. I'm being a bit dramatic. This isn't exactly how it happened, but on his way out of town, as a last-ditch effort of, let's see if this goes anywhere. I guess I just had a bad night, and this really wasn't anything. But it had been a year, and so it was something that continued to come back to me and come back to me and come back to me. And so it felt important. I didn't know why it felt important. I just knew that there was something that had been given to me that I felt compelled to make happen. And so I handed Tim this document, honestly, not expecting ever to have a conversation about it, knowing he was heading out of town. And instead what happened was, as I got it, and Tim, you can fill this in, you called me from a pier in New Orleans when you were attending a Global Ministries board meeting. And that was the first time that I ever remember you asking me the question that I have heard you ask me and other people over and over and over again. Now, what do you need to add to that story? And then I want you to answer, what was the question?
Well, all I remember was that when I called, I remember calling, and I called because I was checking in. I mean, I'm the lead pastor and I'm not there, number one. So I'm calling the person that I trust, number two. So I'm just calling to check in. And I think at that point I said, well, I read over what you gave me. And we had a conversation. I said, tell me more. I think is probably what I asked. Tell me more about it. You told me, you gave a fresh look at what I'd read. And I think the question that I asked is, what do you need from me to do what you need to do?
Yeah, and what what I remember responding was $25,000.
And I think I said, well, let's see what we can do about that.
Had I known at that moment, I probably should have asked for more, but that was really what I needed in the moment. And as an example, what ended up happening with that was probably about this time of year, wasn't it, Tim, or later in the year? And that following summer, we launched a ministry inviting people to come from all over the country to serve in the city, introducing them to relational ministry and what it means to follow Jesus and serve people in the midst of their journey of faith. And so it did end up happening. And
for multiple years.
Right. And I don't know.
A remnant of it's still happening.
Right. It is still going on. And I don't know if Tim hadn't asked that question, you say it in several different ways. What do you need from me to get this done?
To do what you need to do. Yep.
I don't know that the conversation would have gone any farther. And so, Tim, maybe you can share with us, what is that question about for you?
Sarah, I wish I could say that that's an all planned out thought process that I've had for years, but it's not. What I've learned is that there are several things, and it's just based on some assumptions I have. One of them is God speaks to other people besides me. So God may be speaking to, let's use you as an example, God may be speaking to you. So I should be listening. So when I hear this, and then the other thing is that one of the great gifts I get that I've received over the years is that when I get to be in the midst of something that God might be doing, I get to be a part of something that I would not have been a part of otherwise. So those are two things that I'm thinking about, that I've learned that I was thinking about. I don't know that I started there. Where I do start is that I've learned that the people who surround me, who are there partially because I want them to be, I think, is that I trust them. So that when somebody comes to me with an idea, I'm willing to say, well, what do you need to do to get that done? I've also learned I did this as a lead pastor, but I've also done it with pastors as a superintendent. I ask that question every time I meet with somebody. What do you need from me? How can I help you? That's the question, because it's not about me. It's about helping people become who God created them to be, whether it's their potential as a person, a potential of some kind of project, and how do we bring the best out and to have that happen. That's really what's behind that. Now, the real crass way of saying that is, if you don't ever try something, it never works. So if you don't take the chance, it may not work, but there's also the chance that it will work and the world changes. That's another part that I think about. So you got more than you wanted there, but that's...
So relate the question to the theme that we're talking about this month. And I think you pointed to it. I just want you to say it directly. How does that question point to the theme we're talking about today in terms of leadership as service?
Sarah, I know that you're looking for something specific, but for me, it's not about me. I'm not the expert. I'm always looking for ways that God can work through me, but I'm also looking for ways God works through somebody else. So the best way I can serve others is finding where God's at work in their lives and helping make that connection. So that's part of what I'm thinking.
You said it, and you said it multiple times before I even asked the question. I just wanted you to say it in connection with that question of, it's not about me. that approach, when we think about leadership as service, when you come with that understanding, it creates a whole different tone and conversation versus recognizing, who is it about, Tim?
Well, it's about the living God we know in Jesus Christ, and how we are related to that together. You just had something. I've got a little image here, since it's not about me. How can I help the very seed of faith and this vision grow in someone else? If it's not mine, how do I help somebody do this? I'm thinking about, if I plant some seeds, I don't have any control over those, whether those seeds grow or not. If I put them in the ground, I have no control. I don't have any control over whether they grow or not. I can stand over them and I can say, and I can try to micromanage them. Let me do it this way. I can try to micromanage them and say, I want you to grow in this spot. I want you to grow this way. This is the way we have this planned. And you're going to be this big when you finally bear fruit. Any kind of plant that I would do that, if God speaks through the plant, says, yeah, just watch me. I'm going to do what I want to do. Now, I can toil the soil. I can water the plants. I can make sure that they get the right kind of sunlight, whatever, and they'll grow. And what they'll produce isn't anything I have any control over, but I get to enjoy the fruit. That's the way it is with people, I think. It's not about me, and it's not about me standing over somebody and saying, I want it done this way, this way, this way. I mean, there may be times you need to do that, but God speaks through all of us. God works in all of us. God works in all of our little churches. God works through all these pastors. I just wish, and I'm going to say this, and you can cut it out if you want to, I just wish people believed in God enough that they would trust God to let that happen.
Now, why would I cut that out?
Okay, my rant's over, Sarah. There you go.
No, it's not a rant. You are setting, you set the stage and reinforce the very definition that you started with from Brene Brown, that leadership is about seeing potential in people and processes and having the courage to develop that potential. And so it's not as if you're saying, okay, what do you need? And then running the other direction and not a part of it. You try to help people develop what is happening. And sometimes, in my first example, it's by helping define the $25,000 to make something happen. Other times it's simply an introduction. Other times it's nothing more than you saying, okay, I'm here. When you're ready to have the next step of the conversation, let me know what you need.
So with what you've just said, I'm interested in, what is the question that when I say, what do I need to do for you so you can do what you need to do? What does that mean to you?
Gosh, several things. And I think I alluded to a couple of them, but let me say this first. One, I've learned to anticipate that question. And if you had some bad sausage for breakfast and don't ask that question, I've learned to name, here's what I need from you in this. So that's the first part. But to answer your question directly, what does it say to me? One, it says, you trust me. You trust that I'm not blowing smoke, that I'm going to get done what I'm laying out, that this wasn't a harebrained idea, that it was something that is helpful and useful and will meet whatever we're trying to work on. Second thing that it says is you're willing to offer support. And that's connected to the third thing for me. It's that you're not the expert, and maybe you are the expert, and you might even know more about it than I know about it, but you want to know what is helpful for me in that moment instead of assuming what is helpful. And so when I think about our theme for this month of leadership as service, that not making an assumption to me is a huge attitude approach. I don't know what the word is that I'm looking for, of taking a service approach to leadership, that the assumptions are not made. Because autocratic leaders, what do? They assume, they take charge, they, jump ahead, they intervene, and none of that happens when that question is asked, and none of that happens in the way that you lead. Yeah.
So an image I have, again, coming from nature, since I'm such a nature-filled guy, is you don't, when a caterpillar makes a cocoon or a chrysalis and it breaks open and there's a butterfly to come out, you don't pull the butterfly out. Now, you already know that the butterfly is going to come out, but you have to watch the butterfly do that, because in the process of breaking out, it strengthens its wings. It does everything it needs to do to be able to fly. If you take it out, it does not fly. Part of what you've just said is, if we don't go through this trust and the resource of being able to step into something that we may not know, but we can at least allow to emerge, we're actually strengthening ourselves to see something new. And I'm going to say this. This is one of the things that really bothers me. Okay, so you've given me a chance to be behind a microphone today. Here's one of the things that really bothers me, and that is people who want to micromanage or just tell you and not allow anybody who's working with them to be able to exercise their own strengths and personality, and want to jump ahead and say, well, I've gotten this stuff already done, which may not be exactly what needs to be done. It's kind of like pulling a butterfly out of the cocoon.
Yeah.
And that really bothers me. Now, okay, so save me here now, Sara.
Well, I think part of why I would say I don't appreciate that in leadership is, again, I'm going to go back to the definition. If you are seeing potential in people and processes, and if you're developing that potential, and that is the role of a leader, it means that you are probably not the person doing the work. You are the person coming alongside and cultivating and asking questions and helping them get connected to what the person that you're leading or people that you're leading need to do to take the next step and grow. And since we're talking images today, the image that's coming to my mind is, and I think we've mentioned this before on podcasts, if a pastor in a Bible study tells people what a text is about and never teaches people how to read the scripture for themselves, when they are invited to read the scripture for themselves, they don't know what to do. That is not leadership. That's simply telling people what you think. And what you say and have to say is likely needed. And it might even be true to the text that you're reading, but I wouldn't call that leadership in that context. So I think what we're both pointing to is how and you say this all the time, how are you helping people become who God created them to be? And if that is a question that you can ask yourself in the midst of your leadership experience and your leadership challenges, then you're likely going to know what the next best thing is that you need to do to lead the people that you're leading. And it might not be what you think it is.
And let's broaden that just a little bit and say, what would happen if you are a pastor, if you ask your staff pastor parish committee, or your finance committee, or your leader team, what do you need from me for us to do what we need to do as the pastor? Instead of going in and saying, this is what I'm going to do, or this is what we're going to do, that you begin to ask that question. My guess is, my experience has been, you continue to get to do what you think ought to be done. What you've done is just invited a whole other group of people to do it with you, because you become vulnerable. You actually show that you trust, and that there'll actually be resources for what people want to have happen,
Right.
which is exactly what you want to happen. That's what you've just said. So I guess what I'm thinking is that this isn't just done with individuals. This is done with your committees. It's done with your leadership of the church, with staff, however.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that you're pointing to, Tim, when the question goes to a broader group of people, and it's a consistent question across all of the people that you are leading, you're also going to begin to hear the unnamed expectations that now get named. And some of the responses will be, I don't need anything. Or it might be, I'm thinking of finance reports. All I need from you is to know that you received the report, so that I'm not wondering, did they get it? Do they know where we're at? And if you're excited or have questions, you know where to find me. Naming what we need and asking for what we need is just as important as asking the people that we're leading what they need from us. Most people are not going to anticipate the question that Tim has given you today. What do you need from me to get done what you've been asked to do, or some variation thereof? And so they don't know how to answer it. First role as a leader, and Tim, I've watched you do this over and over and over again. You ask the question, and then you're quiet. That's the first thing. It may seem like an obvious thing, but if you have a preconceived idea about what needs to happen, the temptation is to launch right into that idea and not stop and listen for their response. And if people aren't anticipating that question and they don't know how to answer it, there's likely going to be silence, or they might simply say something like, gosh, I don't know. And what I want to invite you to do is return to the question. Ask it again. Ask it in invitational ways. Continue asking it until people are able to respond. Because you just might surprise people with that question, and they might be so surprised that they just don't know how to answer in that moment. But there really is something that they need from you. They just need a moment to formulate what it is that they need.
I like what you're saying, and I want to go back to something that we've said over and over. It's not our words, it's really Brene Brown. But I learned that maybe that's what I was doing. Not that I need to have, that I'm trying to butt in on what Brene Brown said, but really what we get to do is to discover the potential of people and then help them live that out. And it's the potential of individuals. It may be the potential of groups. It may be the potential of a whole process or a system. And what, as a leader, my responsibility is to be able to have that come to its greatest fruition, so that as an individual, we are who God created us to be, that all of our processes and our systems are helping us live into our mission. That's who we are. That's what it's about. And that's really what leadership as service is, in my opinion. And of course, my opinions are all biased opinions.
I was quick on that one.
I deserve that.
What I'll offer is this. Tim puts up with me, and when I talk about this, how about I just say it and stop dancing around it? So I have had training as a coach. And there are moments in the work that I do that I can get annoyed when people use the word coach in different contexts when they're really not a coach. Now, I'm going to eat those words right now because what was coming to me as you were talking, Tim, is you really take a coach approach to leadership. And that is what that question does, because that's what coaches do. They ask good questions. And as a leader, if we can learn to ask questions, we're going to help people develop that potential, and we're going to help people become who God created them to be. And I can't help but hear and see that as a coach and see that happening in and through other people. So, way to go, Tim. I just ate my words. You may have never had formal training as a coach, but you have definitely learned to embody what it means to coach people and to come alongside them in that way. So thank you for reminding us of that question again. So here are your write it down, talk it out questions for this episode. Here's the first question. What questions do you ask as a leader? And if you don't know, maybe start with a question that Tim offered.
So the question is, what do you need from me to do what you need to do?
And maybe the other question in that is, how can I help you become who God created you to be?
That's really the question.
And then the third question for today is, what does leadership as service mean to you? As a reminder, you can find show notes, including a link to the list for the 2021 themes at transformingmission.org/194. And remember, who you are is how you lead. Bye for now.